It's
Okay.
both.
All right.
This
I'm ready.
I will. This is Fran Lewis. This is MG Network. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, everywhere. So if you're ready, people, Brian Silverman is here, and we're going to talk about. Let me put the reading glasses on so I could see.
Okay, you and me
And
both.
a new version of Freedom Drop. Okay, I love this character. Lynn Orfigo is a former New York bar owner and family man who has disappeared on a small island in the Caribbean. I think we all wish we were there. When a
Yep.
local tour guide is suspect in an American woman's fall from a cliff, John's mother enlists him to help free her son and prove his innocence. That's only number one. Conflicted by the need to spend more time with his 16-year-old daughter, Mr. Lynn, as he's known on the island, luckily agrees to help. During his investigation, he discovers there are other, much more powerful forces involved in the woman's death that threatens both his life and his family. But if it wasn't Lynn, he wouldn't do it. Yes, he did. Okay, so here are my questions.
Okay.
This is
Oh, boy.
really give us a short summary. The book focuses on suicide at the middle of the beginning of the book. How come you did that first? That was interesting.
Well, you can call it suicide, but there's a historic element to that in terms of Freedom Drop, which is the title of the book, is a landmark on this fictional island. And it's a place where the indigenous people and slaves later would leap to their death rather than succumb to slavery by the European invaders and whether it was the Spanish or the French or the British. So it was suicide, but it was something, it was either that or slavery. That's why it's called Freedom Drop.
Mm.
And so the prologue of the book has a flashback to 250 years ago on that island.
Mm.
And then there's a part two of it to the current day where a woman, we don't know if she jumps or if she's pushed. So that's the mystery to begin the book.
Well, I gotta tell you, this character, you gotta love him. The setting is in the Caribbean. How did you decide to have the owner of that's good. He made it louder so I could hear better. The owner of a bar as the main character and as a detective. I thought that was so cool because I've read too many and this is the first.
Yeah, well, first of all, he's not really a detective. He is a bar owner. And he ends up helping people and
Yeah.
doing detective type work. So he's an amateur. They call them amateur sleuths. It just works out that way. He gets involved with helping people, and in as he helps them, he's an investigator. He's a detective to solve whatever they need solved. Um, but he's a transplant from New York City, so he has no law enforcement background. It's just something that he's learning along the way.
Well, he owns a bar and he helps so many people and he goes out of his way, but he often doesn't realize that he's going to get hurt. He just take, he's sort of like me, you just do it. You don't care, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, I think we all care, but in his case, he went through a traumatic event in New York, which had him leave his family and the city to start a new life on this small island.
Mm.
And I think he doesn't care as much about his own well-being as maybe other people might, based on his experience.
Tell us about Dina Gould. She's the center of this story. What happens to her? And how why does everything think she fell and leave to her death on Freedom Drop?
Well,
Why would somebody do that? I felt so bad for her.
she was, we find out, was an investigative journalist. Len knew her as just a travel journalist that was there visiting the island. But in his investigation, turns out that she was working for an investigative website that
Mm.
investigates powerful people. And so that
Mm.
creates the doubt that she killed herself and maybe somebody wanted her dead. Uh,
That's sad.
Yeah, and her mother is not convinced that she committed suicide, and is very powerful in trying to find out the truth of what happened to her.
Who really killed her? So we have Raul, Johns, and how does the tour guide come into it, and why is he arrested?
He is arrested because he was the last person to
Is
see
he?
her, and we find all that out through the book. But his mother is the one that contacts Len to try to find out who might really have killed Deanna. But he's arrested because he's the one suspect that puts him with her right before she died.
Now we meet his daughter Kathy, and he hasn't seen her, and now she's visiting from school, and she gets caught up in this whole thing. She's really a good character. I like her.
Thank you. Yeah, well, he's estranged from his family he has two children, a daughter and a son. And this is the first time his daughter, who's older than the son, comes to visit the island and Len's life there, because she's 16 and can travel on her own at that time. And so all this evolves while he's trying to make amends with his daughter, he's been away from for too long, and he feels guilt about that. But he's also caught up in trying to deal with this, helping Raleigh Johns be free from what he was accused of. So there's a conflict, and plus it becomes dangerous for his daughter to be around him because some of the people have found out that he's investigating this, and there were some threats. So he has to cut short his vacation with his daughter.
That is sad. Now, this question, I couldn't believe this. First of all, the mother of the tour guide, you gotta love her. And so, why does she bring dinners to Food and Len? I mean, I know she thinks she's gonna help him, solve the whatever, but I could use somebody like that too.
We all could.
Yep.
Well, that's Len's thing. I mean, since he's been on the island, he doesn't accept money for what he does, but he does accept a home cooked meal.
I don't
And,
blame him.
and word gets around the small island that if you want something from Len, bring him a home cooked meal. And that's why. That's the intro to talking to Len about your problems.
He must gain a lot of weight though.
I don't know about that.
Well, he's lucky.
Yeah.
Now, the next character is in this book. In the next book, he sort of changes. And that's Superintendent Williams. He's not thrilled that Len is going to investigate. So, what did Len think there was? He thought there was more to her death. Won't say what. So, he gets annoyed in this book, but the next book, it's different.
Well, because there's an evolution in their relationship. We'll talk about the next book in a couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
I have that over
But
there.
in this book, he's still the amateur that he is.
Yeah.
And McWilliams, the police chief of the island, feels he's encroaching on his work and interfering with his own investigation. But as we'll find out in another book, they work together eventually.
So, who was Frost? And why does he realize that there's something more to her death because of his death?
Because he worked with her on this website and knew what she was working on. And so he comes to the island to find out what happened to her as well. He also had a relationship with her. So he has a dual mission to find out what happened to Deanna.
So now we have the mother of the young girl. Tell us about Marcia Gould.
Well, she is a single mom who's kind of a socialite in New England, and she wants closure. Her daughter is dead. She doesn't know how she died. There are, rumors that it was a suicide, rumors that she was murdered. So she puts her money and power in. That's what she's working with McWilliams to find out what really happened to her daughter.
Now, it's a good thing that I'm really smart and that I kept the questions, the ones that you said to delete. I'm looking at them and go like, don't say that one, don't say that one.
I don't
The people
I don't
on the
remember that,
island
but
accept him. How come? I mean, he's really, a lot of people resent people who help other people, and they feel they're doing it for their own good. And I know how that feels. I just
yeah.
do it because I like doing it. I don't mind. And a lot of people do things just for money, plus not me. So how come they feel about him? And who is Tubby? I love that guy.
Well, I'll talk about Tubby first, I guess.
Yeah.
Tubby is his best friend on the island. He was a man he met when he first came who was working multiple jobs. And when Len wanted to open his bar, he needed somebody to help him that had connections through the island because it was a network that he was not familiar with. It's a foreign place. And Tubby was that network. And in doing so, Len made him a partner with him. So they're co-owners of this bar that they opened on the island. And is it also Tubby also seems to help and give advice on how to detect them, how to investigate these things. So it's a love-hate relationship between them, sort of like in the second book, they kid each other like husband and wife, but they're really best friends. Uh, and in terms of part of the reason he does these things is he knows that on places like this where he's a foreign interloper and he's opening a business there,
Mhm.
and there is resentment in a lot of ways for people that do that. So he tries to ingratiate himself with the community, which is very tight knit, by going out of his way to help people when they need help and when they can't find help from other means, including the police.
Yeah, but Tubby seems to have a handle on a lot more than Len sometimes too.
Yes, he
And
does.
then everybody needs one of those too. Oh,
Right.
wait a minute. This one says delete. I'm getting good at this. The good thing I could read. Why did you use so much code switching in the dialogue?
Well, it's not. It's on the islands. There's a patois, Caribbean patois. I guess you could detect the differences from the islands, but for you and I, it's just a Caribbean patois, and some are stronger than others. I've read books where it's pretty tough to follow along because it's almost like another language. So I softened that, but I did wanted to keep the island tongue in there if I could. So it sounded like somebody from the Caribbean talking. Um,
The only thing that's missing is a picture of the island,
well, it's not a real island.
so I can feel something beautiful. Because I'll never get there. What can I say?
Well, Fran, it's a composite of many of
Yeah.
the islands I've been to. It's not a real island, but it has many elements of islands I really like in the Caribbean. I've traveled a lot there.
So now we have what happens when? Why does Len go to see Royal in jail? And what happens when he meets him?
Well, Len is there to find out as much as he can from what actually happened up until the death of Deanna Gould. So he details from Raleigh in the jail what happened the evening that she died. So it's almost like it's a long chapter as Raleigh explains every step, how he leading up to her death, which he does not admit to or see. So we're still a little baffled on what happened to Deanna after that.
Now, this is important. There's a legend of Freedom Job. So why did you bring in slavery and genocide? And it's tell us about the landmark Freedom Job. But it's important in St. Peter because without that, it would just like where would the story be?
Well, it's actually based on real events and real landmarks. Several islands had the exact same thing as Freedom Drop, where slaves and the indigenous people, which were also put into slavery, would jump to their death rather than succumb to becoming slaves to the European invaders to their islands. So it's actually based on reality. If you travel to some of the islands, many of them had these cliffs that they actually leap to their deaths to, rather than become slaves, and that's why.
Well, I'll tell you very honest, a relationship with a father and the daughter is the best.
Thank you.
It
Well,
is. My mom was really tough on me. And if I didn't get 100 on every test, I had to write it over.
uh,
99 was not accepted.
oh, good.
Oh,
That's tough.
it was really tough. That's probably why I was an A-plus student
Yeah.
forever. And every
Well,
time I got a test in graduate school for my master's, she would say, "What'd you get?" And I would say, "See, I got 100, Ma. No problem." So
well,
why
he
did
had.
she send the daughter home in such a short time? And she wasn't happy. She didn't really want to go home.
She wanted to help him. She wanted to be more a part of his life because she hadn't been a part of his life, but he felt
Yeah.
that she was in danger. And after what he did to her in terms of leaving the family, he couldn't risk anything happening to her. He still had a relationship, at least a cordial one, with his ex-wife in New York, and he would never risk her getting hurt, um, especially after he hurt her by deserting the family that he did. But I never had a daughter. I have two sons, so I had to make that stuff up, a father-daughter relationship.
I was a step parent for 14 years, so I know how it feels.
Okay.
My ex-husband's son decided he liked the stepmother better than the mother and the stepfather. Besides, that
Right.
was more fun.
Okay.
What can
All
I
right.
say? Coming in from work, from a third job, and he's there with his friends cooking dinner. And they're like, no problem as long as you make me a steak. I don't care.
That's
So
good.
tell us about Len's relationship with Betta and her son. Is he going to get a girlfriend permanently? Not yet. He's not ready.
Well, we'll see. But right in Freedom Drop, Betta is a character who he has known since he's been at the
Yeah.
island, and a good friend uh, that he met, an Italian man, falls in love with Betta and marries her, but he deserts Betta and goes back to Italy, leaving Betta pregnant. So this doesn't happen in Freedom Drop, but we hear a little bit of that history. So Len feels obligated to take care of Betta and her new baby. So he sort of like takes care of uh, her needs, at least as she's a young mom, and her young sons. So he's sort of a mentor and feels obligated because he was good friends with this man who deserted her, and he knows how he felt deserting his family. So there's the guilt there too.
Okay, now, what is special about the blue moon? That was interesting. There was something on Google about a blue moon, and there's going to be like a flower moon coming up.
Well, it's just when you see the moon and the stars in a place like that on an island like that, it's even more prominent. So the blue moon, which is something special to see anyhow. I guess it's a blue moon here means it's just brighter in some ways. They call it a blue moon.
That's
So
pretty.
on the island, it's even more brighter because there's no big, big buildings and lights to obscure it at all, and it lights up the whole island. So I kind of took liberties with that. I'm not a scientist or astronomist, so I don't know, but I thought it was a nice touch.
I have to add this question. Now,
Okay.
if he's going to investigate, who's running the bar?
Tubby, and they also have a third person named Mike that
Yeah, I like her.
they work on. He has people to help him out, but he usually does them concurrently. He is not away from the bar that long. He can do it. It's a small island. You can do two things at
Yeah.
once.
But he does okay though. People come there.
Yes, it's become a place to go because his it's a sports bar, and the island didn't have a sports bar where you could go watch. In that case, whether it's soccer or cricket or golf or anything. So it also has one of the best views on the island, which people come to see.
Now, what does he learn from Dina's phone records on her laptop? How did he get that?
Well, Fran, I'm going to leave that one out only because I don't want to get too much and give too
Okay.
much
It
away on
was
the
one of the
plot.
questions you didn't mind delete.
All right, no, I know, but I think I'm going to leave that one, and so
Okay,
people
we
can
just did.
guess when they read along. I don't want to give it all away.
So tell us about Marcia and how come she changes her direction, and what was the reason he sent Cassie home to his house, and why? That's sad.
Well, because there was a threat made to
Yeah.
him at his home. I don't want to, again, I don't want to give that one away, but there were people working for this powerful man that were threatening him indirectly, but were getting closer and closer to him and his daughter and knew about them. He didn't want to put her in danger. That's why he sent her home.
Well, there are other characters in here. I have the book in front of me. I think I have it memorized just about.
Well, a lot of them,
Yeah, it's really bad. So
yeah.
who are the other characters that you want to share? Because I don't want to say names and then you'll tell me I said the wrong name.
No, the major characters are, Len and his daughter Casey and Tubby, and then Nick Williams, the police chief, and then the other
Yeah.
characters in the book. He has a brief relationship with Deanna's mother, Marcia, and then there's also an investor on the that works for the island named Denton. But then there's a cast of characters that come to the bar that you'll see on and off uh, as you read into the series, which are almost part of the community, his community.
No, I looked at the last part of it. I'm saying I can't list this person's name. I mean, really, it's like, oh, there's another character in this book that's going to be in the next one, right?
Yes.
And that's the guy that causes all the trouble in the next one.
Yeah. I think you're talking about the
That's what
Italian.
we're going to say about him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a bunch of characters, but many are minor. As I said, the major characters are Len, Tubby, McWilliams, Betta. Those are the ones that are the foundation characters to the book.
Now, the ending, it really got me. The person that did it came out of nowhere. And why does someone offer Len enough money for, well, what does anybody offer money?
To Len?
I don't want to say who.
Oh
There are
yeah.
so
Well,
many twists at the end. And how does this end? How does Len feel about everything at the end? And is he satisfied?
he's he realizes that there's a gray area, and sometimes what you think you know, you don't know. And sometimes what you want to know, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's like all of us when we find out things about people. Know, whether he's a good person or a bad person. And sometimes also there are people that have demons that we don't even know they have that drive them to do things that we couldn't imagine. So I wanted to leave it not so much black and white, but a little dark gray that way, if you understand what I mean by that. Just because there's it's really hard to, look black and white in this world. There's that middle area that's so more prominent.
Well, I don't want to bring in the people that know that people get killed. There's a whole bunch of people. But the issues that I found were deception, deceit, lies, hidden truths. How did you relate all of them in the plot? Because they all basically fit, every one of them.
Well, because uh, people, different people display different traits. Some, are honest and truthful. Others are deceitful. And it's just a broad range of characters and characteristics I wanted to bring into the book, and show that you can't define somebody on surface. It goes way beyond that.
So, how did the police react to this whole thing?
Um, they see in the island, they kind of like the police. They get the credit for solving what they solved.
They get the credit for everything. The police,
Yes.
even if
So
they didn't do it.
no, but he did his best, and like I said, he's just trying to help, and the police understand that. In the end, McWilliams understands that he's not trying to disrupt his investigation. He's really just he's doing a good thing. He's trying to do a good thing. And you find that out at the end.
Some people resent people that are do-gooders, and they just think they're doing it. He's not doing it to be recognized. He's just doing it because he's a nice person and he cares.
Yes. Yeah, he's doing it for that rate. And he's also got his own guilt issues, and this helps him try to get over those, at least temporarily, for what he did in New York.
Well, when you own a bar, do you get tempted to drink? I don't drink ever, so I don't know.
He drinks, but he doesn't, he drinks.
He didn't get bombed.
Well, not much. There are occasions.
I
But
know a lot of
mostly,
people
if
that
you own a
do.
bar, you have a beer. Maybe he will have a beer.
Yeah, I just lost my nephew to drunk driving
Oh,
in
well,
January.
I'm
And he
sorry.
knew he was drunk on purpose. It wasn't like he didn't know. He went into a tree. So people that drink and alcohol and drive,
Not good.
got to be because now before I forget, New York Times author Alan Jacobson will be here with the new Karen Vale novel on Tuesday, Dying to Know. On the 28th, guess who's going to be back with Calypso Blue? And
I'll be
on the
back.
9th, I was so honored, New York Times author John Gilstrap is going to do his new book, Burning Bridges. And on the 16th, we have a children's author, Addie's Charm School Room. And I have another one on the 23rd. So if anybody wants to do a stream, I have August open. And coming in, I have one in October. And we'll see what happens. So why did you bring slavery into this? This is a very important issue, even now at times.
I only brought it in because it is part of the history of those islands, a big part of the history of the Caribbean islands. And I don't think I, made that the focus of the book in any way, just as it, retelling and explaining the island as, like I said, it's a composite of other islands, and all the islands went through slavery, unfortunately, because they were taken over by European settlers who opened plantations, and they brought in African slaves to work the plantations until emancipation on the various islands. So that's just part of their history.
Now, this is my favorite part of the book. You could guess. The delicious dishes. How did you create the attempt to read a dish? How did you create them and the research that did you do to these dishes? Well, most of them I can't eat, but I wish I could because they smell good in the book.
I'm glad. Well, Fran, I was a travel writer and a food writer. And part of my work as a travel writer took me to the Caribbean. And I would often write stories about the food of the Caribbean. So I'm very familiar with local dishes. And that's why I put them in there. And they're also, I think people find them not only interesting, but delicious. So I thought it was a nice touch to include food, which is a big part of the island life as well.
I think the people wanted the recipes in the back of the book.
Good idea. Maybe for the next one.
I had an author that did that, and then I posted the review with the recipes, and the book sold even more
I
because the
bet.
people wanted the recipes. Of course, I don't. I'm not allowed to cook. It's okay. I don't go near a stove. No,
No? Okay.
no,
Well, I hope
no.
you eat one.
My mom owned the kitchen. My grandmother, when I grew up in the South Bronx with my grandmother, and nobody. My mother was. You weren't even allowed to take a drink of water without my grandmother handing you the glass.
Uh-oh.
It was hard. Yeah, that's probably. She used to sneak me sometimes something I'm not supposed to have, but that's why I was overweight, but not anymore. So I love Len. How would you describe his personality?
He is kind of a grumpy man,
Hmm.
gruff, cynical, but also, as you know, he has if you get past that exterior, he's not, he can be soft. He can be a softy as well.
Is he ever going to meet anybody?
Mm, well, we'll have to
I
read.
can't tell what he looks. It's hard to tell what he looks like. Probably looks like one hot bartender.
No, he's not a young man.
I didn't think
And
so.
he's upper middle age, not quite a senior,
That's
but
all right.
he's so he's tall, and he tries to keep. In the book, that he was a martial arts person, Muay Thai, and he he's not in bad shape, but he's not a young man, and he's not a matinee idol.
Yeah, but there's something
Maybe you
about
can
him
tell
that
me
draws
who would
people to
play him
him.
in movies.
There's
Give
something
me a
that
good
draws
cast.
people to him.
What's that?
There's something about him that draws everybody to him.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, well, I think that's also part of the bartender training. A
Yeah, they
good
do.
bartender attracts customers and is very, a good listener and a good one-on-one person. And he has that trait, uh, which has also made him a good bartender. And then in New York, he opened up bars because he was such a good and popular bartender.
Well, a lot of people go to bars and they ask their bartender question and they tell them their life story. And
That's
then they
true.
like it. I
That's
know.
true.
So tell us about the next one, Calypso Blue. Because I read that in like an hour or two. I couldn't put it down.
Well, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, it's a few years later, and
Yeah.
he's evolved, and his relationships with people on the island have evolved, and uh, I don't want to talk too much about it because we're going to talk a whole
No.
bit about it in 2 weeks. So, but I think it's a little more intense in this book, but we'll see. You can tell me in 2 weeks.
Well, I was surprised. I'm not going to say by who, but surprised that Len had to deal with two things that happened.
Right.
Two things
I
that
know.
happened.
There were
Yeah.
two things to deal with in Calypso Blue, and I was debating doing that. And a lot of books I will read about that I enjoy have multiple plot lines, whether it's a detective working on a couple of cases at the time. These are not detective cases, but yes, he has two things going at the same time in the next book.
This is so cool. There's Len, and he has to solve one problem of one murder. We won't say who, even though it's on the back cover of the book. And then it gets more complicated when an old friend comes back.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I didn't. Well, what can I say? It got more interesting with him,
Good.
but
I'm
you don't
glad. Yeah.
know. You don't know what's going to happen. And even on an island like this, something could happen.
Right.
So, what can you tell us about the next one? Because I don't want to give it away, and I have to read. And I wrote in the book, and unfortunately, like I said, I have to read it over. Make sure I have the review right, because I don't want to write 10,000 words.
Okay. Well, I would have to say, without talking too much about the next book, he's evolved. He's changed a little bit, being on the
Mhm.
island more and really assimilating more into the island. So that aspect of it, he's grown a little in the next book, as you'll see. He's also becomes a little bit more not familiar, but more at ease with having to deal with these investigations because he's done it already. He's done it already. So he's still winging it, but he's a little more confident.
Well, I can honestly say I just got an email from my favorite people at YouTube.
Okay.
This is live on YouTube. I was very upset yesterday. I did a stream. It was excellent, and the stream disappeared.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It disappeared, but I found it. The
Good.
problem is that it did that when I put the stations in the channels, it didn't take because the author couldn't get on because the link was I don't know what. So I tried anyway. So where can everybody get all of your books? And is there going to be a third one?
I'm in the process of a third one. There's Freedom Drop. They can get it on Amazon. Freedom Drop is available on Amazon and other platforms like Barnes and Noble via in print, ebook, or audio. There's an audio version of this book as well. So if you don't want to read and you want to listen to somebody play out the parts, it's available as well. So print, audio, and ebook, all available on Amazon and other platforms.
My new book, I think,
Yeah.
is now on Kindle. It's called Inverted Reality. It's pure horror.
Well,
It's 6 books in one.
wow.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it. It's an accomplishment. My sister will be gone 15 years in July, and she's the reason I'm doing this because MJ Network is after my sister. And I said, let me take all the books that she helped me with, put them together. There's short stories. At the end of the short story, if you don't repent and do the right thing, something else will give you your consequence. The first part is if you do the wrong thing, you will become a face in the mirror forever, reliving it. And the rest of it is 5 other books. And the last one is called The Third Choice, and you don't want that either.
No.
So I don't know how I came up with it. Some people think it's great. Some people think, how could you? I don't even know.
Are they
You
scary?
you must do it. You just sit down and you write, right?
That's
And
right.
you don't
You
think
write,
about it.
Fran, you write for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to write for yourself and hope that other people enjoy what you like.
Well, I've been writing compositions still forever. Unfortunately, my mother's not alive in my ear to correct my grammar. And unfortunately, my sister edited every single book until she died. So it's her fault that I did this. But this has been fun.
Yes,
And
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna send the stream to Gina,
Okay.
and let me end it so that I don't have a problem. Oh, copy invite link. Okay.